I should have recorded that. I just love the American ego.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Of course you don't. No.
At this point, there's nothing we can do but just laugh about how crazy the energy is in the world and life and everything. Oh my goodness. Actually, last night, so I'm in California, and the smoke is ridiculous. I mean, the skies are orange, the sun is red. And right now, the most of the smoke is up high. We have what's called an inversion layer. So the air isn't really bad, but it's just so creepy, the color. I'm looking out my window going, and our pal 17 also posted about the California fires, asking various questions. You have it on your screen, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you just read a little bit of it?
Well, there's a fabulous Happy Holidays photo with Nancy Pelosi smiling while the place is burning in the background. It says, what happens when California is in serious debt and lost priority aid from the federal government due to sanctuary status, as you explained before? What happens when California is in serious debt and all attempts to obtain a bailout from, and it says Pelosi inserted and pushed C-19 aid packages have failed? What happens when California is in serious debt and decides to implement resident overreach by extending statewide shutdowns, incurring massive economic further pitfall? Then it's given us some research. So this is the cool thing about 17, is that it gets you to research for yourself and think for yourself. No cult does that. If you ever need to argue against people as to whether this is a cult, cults do not want you to think for yourself. This is suggesting you go and do a bit of research. Average number of fires in California per year. Average number of fires over the last 3 years. Outside of standard deviation, stated cause of fires. Is it the heat? The average temperatures in California per year. You can do research on that. Outside of standard deviation, power lines as a source. Yeah, right. What changed? What California programs regarding fire prevention, being forest or bush, have been severely cut? Now, that happened in Australia the year before our enormous fires at the beginning of 2020, end of 2019 as well. They cut all the fire prevention measures. Which
it's out there. By the way, I clicked on that link in there. You'll see it below in the description box.
Yep.
And evidently it was overloaded because it was like, no,
everybody's
504 or whatever. Everybody's looking at it. So it just shows you that people are paying attention.
Yeah, the title of it is Budget Cuts Sacrifice Firefighter and Public Safety. Very important. And then it says at the bottom, how do you obtain federal money? And declare a state of emergency and request billions in assistance. Welcome to California. Yeah, it sounds very similar to Baltimore. You know, how that things were so disastrous there that they've had so much federal funding and it goes into the governor's pocket. The whole place is falling apart. It's been rat infested for decades and the money never gets used for the state. When those people find out about that, I'll be surprised if that guy lives if he went outside his house. They'd beat him to death, really. That all that money, they have a system set up where they have a charity, like a not-for-profit, right? Or what's that, non-government organization, NGO, that takes in the money, and then the NGO hires somebody to do work which wins the tender, which happens to have almost exactly the same name as the charity. So you don't really notice that all the money gets funneled straight into the pockets of the governor. And this happens in a number of states.
Yeah. The mayor of Portland got a surprise. So he was out there marching with the Antifa guys and they turned on him and they've actually attacked his condominium building, starting fires, throwing fireworks, lights and stuff at night. And he says he has to move because he's worried about his neighbors being injured. Oh, you're right. Oh, the other thing in Portland is somebody found where these idiots are being housed. Somebody, they built a big fence around
like a car
parking lot, maybe. Yeah. That you can't see it. And there's all these pretty much matching tents and porta potties. And the guy who was filming it even said, "Oh, look, that's Trumpet Man right there, right here." I'm not sure who Trumpet Man is, but somebody from the riots, I guess.
That's the first thing I noticed as well in that shot, that the tents because they look the same. It's obviously been organized. It's been organized. Exactly. And if you want to look at, this has been pointed out by Jordan Sather, I've probably mentioned it before, go to the Black Lives Matter website. This is another fun thing for people who like to boast to you that they know what they're doing because they watch mainstream media and they know everything. Tell them to go to the Black Lives Matter website, click on the donate button, takes you to a different website, and then go and look at the front page of that website and see what they do. That second website is Act Blue. It raises money for the Democrat Party. It's so obvious. They haven't even tried to hide this.
When I told my kids that at a little dinner party we had recently, they were like, what? Those bastards. Oh, here's something cool that happened. So, Portland's going crazy. So there's this guy who there are videos showing him and a group of other Antifa guys actually hunting down and murdering a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
And then, right, you saw that. Okay, so Vice News actually interviewed him. They said, tonight, the Portland protester linked to deadly shooting sparks for the first time exclusively on Vice News tonight.
Oh my God.
And it's him talking about how it was self-defense and it was a far white supremacist chasing him down and all this stuff. Yeah. So the Trump administration, we speculate, knew that there was going to be a whole lot of his supporters who were going to be like running into Portland to try to stop this nonsense. He wanted to avoid it. So within a couple hours of that video coming out in Vice, they found something in the video that allowed them to locate him. He actually was in a different state. He wasn't in Portland anymore, so no reason to come get him. And within a few hours, they had him. And he resisted arrest, and he pulled out a gun, and he was shot. So he's dead. And they've deputized the state police in Oregon federally so they can bypass the district attorney there who's just like saying, no, slap on the wrist, set him free, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on that's getting this back under control.
Oh, we lost your picture. Yeah, I think the strategy, and everybody knows it too, is that they're trying to set up a civil war between Antifa and Trump supporters. So to nip it in the bud like that is brilliant.
Sweet. So I went out to do my night sky ritual with my dog last night, maybe 11:30 or 12. And the moon, not only was it orange, but it was maybe a third of its normal size. Oh. And for some reason, and I've seen it happen before, that it'll sometimes be normal. I mean, I'm not talking about the differences it goes through when it's closer or further away from the planet perigee or apogee. I'm talking about like really teeny.
I know. You sent me a photograph and I'm like, well, that doesn't mean anything to me. It's a little round dot. So, I had nothing to compare it with. It's pretty hard in a photograph. But I remember you explaining that.
Yeah. But I mean, for some reason, it just made me laugh. I just thought, this reality is so fake. And I just started laughing and laughing and laughing, and I couldn't stop. I mean, I needed to get to sleep, but I couldn't stop laughing. So, I mean, I'm not complaining because it's better than you can't sleep because you can't stop crying.
That's true.
But it's just, it's been intense. So what's been going on in your world?
Probably very good for your body as well. My world,
definitely.
Mechanical breakdowns and hacks, and I've noticed a lot on the spiritual groups and things that I'm connected to. A lot of them are saying, I don't understand, I can't sleep, or I'm so down the last few days, and please help me. And I'm going, wow, this is on many different types of groups that are not connected. I think that there's a lot of emotional turmoil that is bubbling up from underground, literally. I think that's really where it's coming from. And that to hold things steady, that's been our instructions. To hold things steady is actually really tricky. This boat is rocky at the moment.
It certainly is.
Yeah. Finding individual ways to lift yourself up is hard work at the moment. There's a couple of times there as well, and I'm sitting there like, what's wrong?
I know.
I mean, I have my challenges, my car got written off and stuff like that, but it's a car and I still have a son, so things could be worse, and that kind of challenge is happening. And as I said, at my radio station, the whole system got compromised, and it's taken them 2 weeks to get everything back up online, when I was in there working last night, which is why my eyes aren't open. It was 10:30 at night that they finally got one of the major systems running.
Wow.
And they've been working on it for 2 weeks. So we had a little celebration to get things up and running. But yeah, generally I think things are very turbulent.
It is. And I'm like so cross the body, just pain and exhaustion, and I can't like stand up straight, you know, and I can't eat, and I'm queasy in my stomach. I haven't eaten in days hardly. I mean, a little bit of fruit, maybe I can get a cracker down, something like that. It's just, woo, crazy world. Oops, sorry about that.
Yeah, I know these Ascension symptoms are like that. But I find I'm eating the same amount, but I'm bloating out. So I think maybe I should be eating less like you, or I'll start looking like Santa Claus pretty soon, I think.
Well, I got to tell you, it's amazing that I'm not a skeleton with as little as I eat. I mean, I never was a really big eater. I was always the person who didn't finish their meal at a restaurant, you know, took half of it home kind of thing. But now I even put the tiniest few bites of things on my plate. And nope, can't finish it. It's just ridiculous.
It's interesting, isn't it? It really makes you wonder, is it our belief in food that keeps us going and that we starve to death because we believe we need it? I wonder how much of that is reality. If we know that it's all energy, you know, this is curious to me. Like there's been a couple of times, maybe 3 times now, where I've gone without food for days, like no food, nothing at all, like up to 6 days. And I'm sitting there going, I don't know what it is. I feel perfectly fine. Maybe I need to like make sure I don't overexert myself just in case I faint because I've got nothing in my stomach. But I'm fine, and I'm the same shape. Damn it!
Damn it. Well, I remember a theory that a teacher once told me is that food doesn't actually provide you energy. That what it does is whatever is the energetics in the food releases the energy that's already in your body. So in each individual cell you have the mitochondria, which is like the engine of the car, and we have enough energy in each of those things to run cities, you know. So maybe that's it. You know, it's that flavor that triggers the release of the energy. I don't know. It's interesting. I do know that it's a really good idea. You know how if you're really hungry and something looks really yummy and you take that first bite and it tastes so good, you take a few more bites and it still tastes really good, and then you may still feel hungry, but it stops tasting that exquisite. It just starts tasting kind of good, and then just like, well, you know, I'm gonna finish my plate. Yeah, so I think when we get past that point where it's so good to where it's just okay, that's where we need to stop. And even just say, you know what? If I'm anxious about stopping there, I'm going to wait 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And if I don't feel full or satisfied, I can go back and finish it. Because it takes a little while for the messages to get through to your brain that you're had enough food.
Yeah, I think that's why the Asians I was reading that in one of these books about Japanese cooking, that the Asians have very low heart disease rates, and they're most often slim because they're eating with chopsticks and they have to go slow. So apparently it takes like a whole 10 minutes before your brain goes, okay, I'm full, I've had enough. That if you are eating this much at a time that's on in chopsticks, it's a lot easier than if you're shoveling in food with a fork from a bowl. Like I've watched some young kids that are overweight and they are shoveling food in. So if you're doing it at that rate for 10 minutes, before your brain says that's a food, they're taking in way too much food. All right, this is going to be my challenge for the week then, because, you know, I'm going to see if I can just taste it when it's really, really good, like you say.
Yeah. See what it's like, and then just wait that 10 minutes. And if you still want it, go back and eat it. It means it's still good for you. Yeah, that's
saved me a lot of money in grocery shopping.
Oh, I know. I'm so cheap. I grow most of my food, or a lot of my food, and
don't say you're cheap. That's just, you know.
It's like that cheap date thing, you know. But yes, I'm not cheap. I'm
exquisite. No,
low maintenance.
That's not always good either. Like, don't give a shit about that one. You Give her a hug once a week. That's enough for her. She's like,
right. Right. All right. Should we start talking about what's going on in the world? What the heck?
Yeah.
So just here in beautiful, sunny California, like I said, the skies are orange, but we've had the most crazy heat wave. It was 107 degrees a few days ago, and smoky and miserable, and doesn't cool down at night like it usually does. And I think it's being deliberately manipulated, of course, because I have this graphic here, and you can see that these fires this season have been significantly more than 10 years ago, and the heat waves are really different too. And you could say, yeah, it's global warming, climate change, whatever, but the bottom line is California's broke, and it's been broke. And Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, tried really hard to get a bunch of money sent to this state for the COVID thing in order to pass their bill to get people help, right? And Trump said, no way, because California doesn't get a bunch of money because it's a sanctuary state and the president won't fund it. So they're trying to get emergency money through this fire. It's ridiculous. It's quite the scandal.
It does feel very much manipulated. And you know what's interesting from this point of view, from the south end of the world, looking at what was going on, that suddenly the media is now talking about, oh, look, it's not really about COVID, it's about climate change. I'm like, oh yeah, just wait for it. So sure enough, the fires had already started by then, but then you have this huge heat wave. And I thought, well, look, if it was climate change, that would be happening all year. Climate change doesn't just happen sporadically. If it's a planetary thing, and before it used to be called global warming, but then we end up with other areas where it's snowing in springtime. So they had to change the name from global warming to climate change. It's manipulated for sure.
And then you do see videos of the fires here from 2017, I think, especially, where you would see the beam coming down.
Yeah, I've put some of those photos, and I think that I'd put that in the weapons one we did. The weapons episode.
So it's definitely dicey here. Thankfully, it's cooled off down to 60 degrees as a high, which is a huge change in just a couple of days. It's, where am I? What is this world I'm living in? With that and with my, I don't know, I don't want to call it COVID brain because I really don't buy into that. It hasn't freaked me out, but it's not working. So I apologize if I stumble over my words and stuff today because, the brain, I think I need to put a lost and found sign up sometimes. Lost my brain. Do you know where it is, anybody? Reward.
Yeah. When you get these extreme temperature changes, I know it's often a belief as well. This is where you have to start questioning your beliefs, that you go, oh my God, it's changed temperature so much, I'm going to get a cold. Now, it's very similar to what we were just talking about with food. Where your mind says, oh, I'm going to die because I haven't eaten. What if a cold is the same? Now, an example of that is it was the middle of winter and I went along to an opera, it was the opening night, which was very fancy. So I had on quite a light, long evening dress and stuff like that. And then I met some friends who were in the chorus and said, hey, come to the after party. I was like, yeah, great, okay, because usually the parties are in the building, in the Opera House, the Sydney Opera House. But this time it wasn't. It was a walk along the wharf all the way down the other end to a nightclub. And we got out there, and of course they had their suits on. They had jackets and shirts and ties and all the rest, and here's me in a satin dress like, oh God. So we started walking, and I had nothing else because I'd just come up from the interior, from the car park. So I thought, all right, while we're walking, what if it's just a belief that I think, oh my God, I'm going to catch a cold. All right, what if I just keep really big aura and feeling light and happy? Like, I'm going to really try this. Walking in the wind. And I go all the way down the end and I didn't catch a cold. I didn't catch it. And I was like, wow, that has got to be the first time because I actually stopped to question the belief.
Good. Yeah. You have to wonder, did they call this seasonal illness people get a cold just so people would have that trigger in their mind?
To link it to colds, maybe.
Nah, nope. What is it? Don't believe everything you believe, folks. Get that bumper sticker, right, on your car. It's the truth, because it's what you believe is what you manifest.
Yep. And what else is happening in America at the moment? Because a lot of my groups that I was connected to for the political and the financial stuff have all been closed down by Facebook. So I'm not in the loop anymore.
Well, President Trump was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize for his work bringing peace between Israel and UAE, which is 29 years or something they've been at war. And now they're allowing Israeli flights over Arab land. So, and there's a peace treaty. It's going to be signed, I think he said, on the 15th of this month. So it's pretty big news. I like that. And then on the other side, recently, the speeches that Biden's been making, he's doing this.
Oh, you think he's going to catch a cold or something, do you?
He's going to catch something, I think, that's going to take him out of the race. Yeah. So just watch for it, because they need to get it going pretty quick, because once he starts coughing, they're not going to wait another week to say, oh, well, he's been coughing for a week, but we just diagnosed him today. I think it's going to happen pretty quickly.
Something deadly. You will take him off the scene. Yeah.
What could it be? So you recently sent me that amazing video.
I want to talk about that, yeah. That's the thing that really stands out for me, aside from my car being written off. There's a young woman, and I'll put the link in below, who is completely blown away by the fact that these have gone viral. She actually did these for her friends. She's a remote viewer. She's a natural psychic. She wanted to send them information, but she couldn't be bothered typing it. So she thought, oh, I'll just do a video. Then the video was too big for her to send to her friends on their phone. So she just put it up on YouTube and sent it to her friends, but then it went viral and everybody wanted to see it. You can see the way she's talking. It's very informal. She's really literally talking to like 2 or 3 of her friends. And she's still going, oh, look, I know you guys are going to think I'm crazy. You're going to think I'm nuts, but this is the vision I saw, and it might be just metaphorical, and it's not true. All this kind of real millions of disclaimers along the way. But to me, it feels like very good, accurate remote viewing. There was like a series of 3 or 4 videos together. So you've got to see them all. Very interesting stuff. So she was seeing under the earth the tunnels. Now, we've talked about these tunnels a few episodes back. She saw an immense world that goes along under all of the world, under all of the continents, and these tunnels and all the rest that connect together, that like a really big system of human trafficking, that people are bred underground, even back generations, and they're just shipped from one place to the next. Specific to Australia, she was saying that Melbourne is one of the biggest hubs of human trafficking, and that about 80% of it is already cleaned up. So they've been cleaning up. I know that someone else had talked about the main tunnels out of this continent have been blown, because you could see the earthquakes around the outside edge of the country. Mm-hmm. And they're working their way in, and they're taking out all the smallest deep underground bases. We call them DUMBs, but I don't think they're military necessarily. Deep underground military base is what DUMB stands for. There's somebody else that's running them that may not necessarily be military. They're a whole different set of people. And they're working their way through the smaller ones, and they're going to keep the biggest ones for later. And she reckons they're 80% done. And that this may be why we still have border closures on all our states, pretty much all our states. And Victoria is the hardest hit, as most people know at the moment. They're still under stage 3 lockdown, and they've had protests which have been squashed really hard by violent police. She saw a lot within that as well. She saw that premier, who is like a state governor, being due to be resigning or arrested within a couple of weeks. Well, resigning at least, because he can't take the pressure anymore. There's so many people now that are pointing the finger at him that he's doing ridiculous things. She felt that she saw an American soldier who is in his 50s, perhaps whispering in his ear, telling him what to do. Andrews thinks that he is following the New World Order. And in fact, there's 2 agendas running here. He's trying to set Marxism into place, and all the things that he's been told to do is actually helping this rescue mission. by keeping things in lockdown. So for people in Victoria who want to be defiant and go out in the middle of the night and have a party, I would advise against that personally. Not just based on what she's saying, but within my own intuition, I would say that if there really is this kind of war going on and this incredible, intricate world underground that she's talking about, you don't want to be out in the streets if any of that leaks up onto the surface. Nasty, nasty people. She saw also a huge, huge pit of fire. Did you see that bit in the video?
Yeah, that was in one of the ones you said.
Yeah.
That was in the video you sent me. Yeah,
most
amazing.
Crazy. So in the middle, if you look at Australia, we're about the same size as North America, but we all live around the outside edge. There's a massive desert in the middle, so people don't necessarily go there. Right smack in the middle of the country is a place called Pine Gap, which is a US military base. And she reckons that it goes far, far deeper. If you look at all these, let me put up on the screen, all these different earthquakes that have happened in Australia that are all exactly 10 kilometers deep. Those are the deep underground bases they're knocking out, or the tunnels that go out of the country. But in the center is, she reckons it's far deeper again. And she pictured it as a huge pit of fire surrounded by mythical creatures. We think they're mythical because we don't see them, but she reckons they live under there and they feed off human meat and energy and blood. And she was so apologetic and, oh my God, this sounds so ridiculous. I don't know how to feel about that just yet. All I can say is, well, maybe it is. I don't think I don't think we'll ever get any evidence of it. We won't get to know about it because it sounds so crazy, this idea. And they have already started knocking that out. She felt that they were getting off-earth help to knock out these creatures, which were not human anyway. Maybe they decided
demon-like.
Yeah.
The part that really just made me go, wow, where she said it looked like a production line. And I just went, wow. Because when I did my vision looking into it, that's exactly what I got. I told you about that. And it just broke my heart. You
described it as a conveyor belt. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I just went, bingo, geez, this stuff is real. Yeah. I just wonder how many of those babies are actually human born, and wouldn't it be quicker and easier just to clone them? I don't know if you need to have a soul in it or if you can just take a cloned body and get it to produce the chemicals that they like to get out of it. I don't know that. I mean, what if they're just cloning them down there? It's much quicker, supposedly. I don't know, but
they can fast track it, right? They can fast track a politician in 3 or 4 months to grow to, you know, the ages of 50 or 60 or 70. I think that would be fine if all they wanted was meat. But perhaps the fact that they want to harvest the energy and the emotions, maybe you can't clone that.
Do clones have emotions? I don't know. I mean, right? But I think like you can get the fear and the dark energy from that. I assume you can get the adrenochrome because it's a biological function. You can get the meat, but is there some way that there's an extra, you know, frosting on the top of the cupcake, as it say, if you've got a human soul in there? Yeah. This is.
It's pretty yucky. And we don't know the answer to this. We're simply just debating it. It is interesting. There was also with the Vatican, she pointed out the Vatican, that the lizard roof that they've put inside their building, which is so obvious and open for all of us to see, it's very lizard-like, that she said that underneath the Vatican, there's also a huge space that looks like an amphitheater. And they all wear their red shoes. Well, we know the Red Shoes Club, which is made of human skin instead for the leather, and symbolic of the puddles they stand in, these people. They're very, very nasty people. She reckoned that there was a demon in there that was about 20 feet high. But there was one interesting little thing that she'd put in there that it sounded like, and I might have to go back over it and see if this is exactly what she said. It sounded like they had chained that demon in place. They had prevented that demon from escaping so that they could praise it and feed it, because they could get powers from this creature, a bit like, you know, the deal with the devil, that, you know, if you sell your soul to whatever this particular demon is, not that there's just one, but there's plenty, that they'll give you superpowers. You'll be able to write amazing songs. I was watching a video of a guitar player in the 1920s, a black man, who was a terrible player and singer, and nobody wanted to listen to him. And suddenly he had this great gift that he could play the blues and he could sing really well, and he became quite famous.
Wow.
And he admitted that he sold his soul to the devil on the corner of Route 66 and somewhere else. So I'll see if I can find that video so you can have a look. So if they held this 20-foot high black demon in place, then maybe he wants to go home. That was my first thought. If they'd held him in place, what if you could say to him, okay, you're banished from here, you can't come back, but you're free to go. You might go, woohoo, and leave, you know?
I think that's true. You know, the amphitheater description, that's how Donald Marshall describes his being trips. He calls them cloning centers, and they abuse you there. They have your clone, and then when you're asleep, they can grab your consciousness and put it in there, is what he said. Now, he goes really far out with this stuff, and I don't know, but interesting that is the way he described it too. So on a happier note, let's finish up on a happier note. The information about the event from your Aboriginal peoples that you sent me that video too. That was really neat. I thought the part that I loved was he references somebody, I don't remember her name, and said she made a prediction 5 years ago that we will know the beginning of the event by there being a run on toilet paper. Yeah. And she bought up a bunch of toilet paper, like filled one of her bedrooms with it. And then after 2 or 3 years, whatever, she thought, well, I guess that was wrong, and started using it.
And that was
and then used it all up. Right. And then it happened. So, I mean, that's just one of those little quirky things that it makes you think, yeah, because if it's that, I mean, who would think, yeah, there'll be a run on toilet paper, then you'll know it's the beginning of the event. I'm like, So
I know, it sounds so ridiculous. She was talking about an auntie, which is how we talk about the original elders. I don't call them Aboriginal now that I understand the syntax, that Aboriginal is like abnormal. It means not original.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I apologize, you guys.
No, that's all right. And people use that term in other countries as well. So talk about them as the original people is probably a better way to do it. I heard even Indigenous. Like I thought, let's call them Indigenous then, but apparently there's something wrong with that too. So let's stick with original. Yeah, seems to be a bit of a mix of opinions through the original elders as to whether the end times is going to be like Noah's flood, and we're all going to die, which is probably a timeline that we've missed, as far as I understand. But I think we've skipped that timeline. We've moved on to a different way of ascension now. So some of them are hanging on to that, and we know about this and you don't. That egotistical thing is a bit there, unless it simply means we've got information that you can't handle right now, is another possibility. So there's a bit of a mix of terms, but I think from this guy, what he was talking about with the elders he's dealing with, and admittedly he doesn't have the best reputation, I've since found out. So there are things that he says which don't come right. He also has a bit of an ego you can pick up. And he also said on this date at this time is going to be the event. And I'm like, well, that's a mistake. Even the original that told you about the toilet paper was wrong. So let's not put any dates and times on these things. We know it's coming, but we can't put a date on it because every choice we make will change when that happens. Yeah.
Right. And I think I remember him saying he was in contact with 5 different elders who were all tell the same story of this event happening with the solar flash, that you and I have talked about a lot. So that's really cool. Yeah. And the stating the date is such a bummer. Because then people are going to be looking, okay, I'll just hang out and wait until that date, which we're sort of kind of doing it anyway. But, exactly on this day at exactly this time is I think, a really bad setup too.
I think so. It's just setting yourself up for disappointment. Because we've been waiting for years for this. There was another thing he had said about how it will start, what will start the event. Now, we've always had the impression it comes through the central galactic sun and then broadcasts through our sun. My spiritual sessions were talking about the sun being a broadcast. It's like a radio mast, and it broadcasts out a message, which is why you need to get out in the sun every day even if it's cloudy, because you can get the messages subconsciously coming into your body, and it helps program you to make your ascension easier. It's important to get a little bit of sun. But he was suggesting that these elders were saying that they will be starting it from Uluru. Now, Uluru is the biggest rock in the world. And it's in the desert. It's a beautiful rock. And they recently stopped tourists climbing all over it because they were dropping rubbish as well. And you think so? You're being photobombed there, Sarah. She wants to listen. No, she wants to listen to your earbuds. And
she wants me to open the door and let her out.
Do you want to do that?
I know.
So tourists are not allowed to walk all over it anymore. And the government has basically given it back to the original people. That is like amazing, because considering they arrived with Captain Hook, I am saying Hook, actually Captain Cook, and proclaimed the continent as owned by the British. Can you imagine all the people here like, what? Even when that happens, I mean, that happens in every country, doesn't it? Over and over and over again over thousands of years. But they've finally given it back to the original people, which is perfect. Because if they have this ritual that they need to do, they're going to be putting together crystals, or I can't remember the full description in the video. You can watch the video if you want to see it. That they will be setting off something that goes out to 5 other places around was that from that video? 5
yeah, I think places? So. And isn't that when they're talking about that they have a particular Syrian crystal?
Yes.
Buried under there that was left here specifically for the purpose of when we are ready, when our frequency is right and we're ready, it will trigger the event.
That's right. He said it was opening the box, and then he said rock. So I think, he's actually he's thinly disguised of actually what this thing is and what it looks like. But it will set off maybe 5 different places around the country, which matches in what the remote viewer girl, JC, was saying as well. She talked about 5 spaces. She pointed it out as maybe being like a pentagram, but look, if it's natural, it's been around a lot longer than people who like to draw pentagrams. And that once that goes out, then it will go out to the rest of the world. So Uluru is perhaps seen as the solar plexus or the heart.
It is. Yeah, it is interesting because everybody seems to think that we're the ones who started,
Yeah.
So, our God is the real God. Your God is fake. My dog is really loud. Your dog is not.
yeah. I was thinking that because there was a few years ago, there was someone who was absolutely determined that a rainbow would burst forth from, I don't know if it was San Francisco or wherever his state was in America. This is the center of the earth and everything's going to start from here. And at that time, I'm like, I don't know. And then when they're talking about Uluru, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it happens so quickly that it'll be online, boom, 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 and nobody will actually know which was the first.
Yeah.
If it's
maybe that visual of it starting here really is symbolic of it starting here in us.
In the heart. Or the solar plexus, whichever.
Yeah. So but I still think this year, you guys probably already know this, and I can do a video on it did I already? At any rate, but on December 21st, which is the solstice, of course, there's this incredible lineup astrologically. The fellow who I like from the astrology is Daniel Giamario of Shamanic Astrology. You can check him out. But he said, I don't know if this is the event that people have been talking about, but if the sky was to signal, yes, this is the event, this is it. This is exactly what the sky is signaling. And he was like, I'm not really sure about all that, but this is saying, yeah. So exciting times.
We'll find out. One more thing I wanted to put in about this was that she had talked about flat earth. I do really want to put this in. I know this sounds crazy and everyone's going, click, turn it off. But it really occurred to me that I wondered if she's from her remote view, she said she could see the earth is flat, really sorry. And I thought, I wonder if what she's seeing is the plane of time. And I wondered, when people talk about flat Earth, this has been an argument that's gone on and on and on. And those who are 3D and love our round sphere of a planet will always argue about the flat Earth and try and put it into a 3D context and say it doesn't work, which it doesn't, right? All the planets, you just look through a telescope, you will see the planets around. However, if you looked at it from a different dimension, fourth or fifth dimension, I'm wondering if that's what it looks like. And it reminded me also of the Dolores Cannon books of Nostradamus that have been channeled through the 1980s, 1990s. And in that, he described looking at the workings of the planet as a huge tapestry. There's someone else who has that too. Brenda Hoffman talks about the tapestry of life. And whenever there's something that affects many people, it comes up like a little snub in the fabric, like a bump that will cause a ripple or crinkles. And if you can get in there and sort it out, then you can smooth things out again. And that could be, if you think about standing on that mountain looking out over the plains of time, it could be anywhere in any part of history, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense, because it matches up what I've experienced when I've gone with people to their pre-birth planning, which is really fun. It looks like the ship from Star Trek, the original one, with a bunch of, I'll call them screens all around, and you stand up in a slightly raised area with your mentor and the various other major soul players in your life. And then on the screens are different possible experiences that can happen if you make those choices. And what you do is you jump into them, and they become it's not a screen you're watching, you actually jump into it and live that moment. You feel what it feels like physically, emotionally, and all of that stuff. And from there, you can make your choices about who's going to be part of your game here. So that makes sense that it would be the plane of time. Makes sense.
Feel free to discuss below if you've got any comments about it. Yeah. Well, so much to learn, and we're always happy to learn new stuff if there's new information that comes in. We're not ever going to say that we know it all.
Yes, that's for sure. And we went all across the board today, didn't we? From the lowest low to the really loveliest high. So that's
got to be worth a donation, right?
That's right. We have Patreon now.
We do. We have Patreon. We'll put the link here. So yeah, we really appreciate any help that you can give us.
Okay. See you next time.
Bye.